I want to try an open marriage, she said. Just like that. No hesitation. No preamble. Not even a nervous laugh to soften the edge. We were sitting at the table we'd picked out together at that overpriced reclaimed wood shop. Candles flickering. Wine breathing in the decanter. Like this was going to be a date night. She'd even made steak. My favorite. Like she was trying to frame the moment. Something about the way she poured the Cabernet, letting it swirl in my glass before speaking, made me feel like I wasn't her husband but her mark. I didn't flinch. I didn't yell. I didn't ask why. I just looked at her. 3 years married. 6 years together. We had talked about a kid, a house upstate, maybe even getting a rescue dog. We weren't flashy, but we were solid, or so I thought. Apparently, Lena had other ideas. She went on, oblivious to the emotional grenade she'd just dropped. I mean, isn't it more mature this way? More honest? Better than lying about it? She said, punctuating it with a sip of wine like we were discussing switching to almond milk. I remember every second of that moment because it was the first time in my adult life that I realized someone I loved had already left me. They just hadn't packed their bags yet. I didn't respond. I nodded, took a sip of wine I couldn't taste, and excused myself to the living room. I sat on the couch, watching the flames in the fake fireplace flicker against the glass. Her phone lit up beside me. Nico Studio. Same time tomorrow? I can't stop thinking about you. It was the third time I'd seen that name. Once on her calendar. Once as an AirPods Bluetooth connection. And now, lit up on her phone like a confession she didn't have to make. Because this wasn't a conversation, it was a verdict. She wasn't floating an idea. She was laying groundwork for something she'd already started. I didn't need to snoop. She'd left the evidence on the table and waited to see if I'd pretend not to notice. I watched her in the kitchen, humming to herself, like she had just done something brave. Like betrayal wrapped in buzzwords and self-help jargon was noble now. I realized then, she thought she was the evolved one. Enlightened, while I was just domesticated, safe, predictable, convenient, and yet she still wanted my name on the mortgage, still wanted my DNA in a baby, still wanted my hand on her back at family dinners, while she disappeared into studio sessions and creative retreats with men like Nico. I wasn't going to yell. That's what she expected. She wanted to paint me as the rigid one, the insecure one, the man who couldn't handle a strong woman finding herself. So I smiled, said sure like I was considering it. I even poured her another glass. Let her believe the fantasy that she'd made a convincing case. That night, while she showered for 27 minutes and came out in new lingerie she hadn't bought for me, I sat in the guest room with my laptop and started a folder. It was called Exit Strategy. I backed up our shared financials, reviewed the home title, bought before the marriage in my name, and looked up the quitclaim process in our state. I exported her Uber receipts from the shared account, screenshot calendar invites, copied text logs to a private drive. Not to use, just to hold, just to remember that this wasn't a moment, it was a pattern. I didn't plan revenge. Not yet. That comes later. But I knew then I would leave. Not in anger. Not in some grand explosion of masculine pride. No. I would leave like a surgeon cuts away a tumor. Carefully, cleanly, without apology. Most people don't subscribe to this kind of silence. They want a dramatic scene, a chair thrown, a screaming match. But I've learned something about quiet men. We don't explode, we evaporate. And when we do speak, it's never in question marks. It's final. By the way, if you're still reading this and you're one of those people listening to stories like this on autoplay, do me a favor, hit subscribe. Over 97% of you aren't, and honestly, it helps the team keep going. Just like I did when I kept paying the bills while she was finding herself. Back to the night in question. She slipped into bed next to me, warm and humming, kissed my shoulder, whispered, "Thank you for hearing me," like I'd given her permission to cheat. I didn't respond, but I was already halfway gone. 2 months before the open marriage dinner, I found the Uber receipt. She had left her purse in the car overnight, and in the morning, while tossing it onto the hallway table, the zipper caught on the strap and spilled out half her life. Lip gloss, a receipt from a boutique I'd never heard of, and a folded slip from her rideshare history. Printed, not digital. She never printed anything. That's what struck me first. It was a late-night drop-off, 11:43 p.m., at a hotel downtown. Not one of the usual chain ones either, but one of those upscale ones with mood lighting and $14 bottles of water in the minibar. The pickup address wasn't from her work. It wasn't from anywhere she should have been. I asked her about it while she was doing her eyeliner before bed. Cool and casual. Hey, weird question. Did you go to the Baxter Hotel a couple weeks ago? She paused. Not a big pause, just half a beat too long. Then she smiled, that fake smile she uses on customer service reps when she's about to ask for a refund she doesn't deserve. Oh yeah, drinks with a friend from the studio. You remember Margot? We went there after a gallery thing. You're not getting paranoid on me, are you? Then she giggled, tapped me on the chest, and walked out of the room. I wanted to believe her. I really did. I wanted to be the guy who shrugs off the creeping dread that sets in when a story doesn't quite add up. The guy who chalks it up to coincidence, bad timing, poor memory. Because admitting what it really looked like, that wasn't something I was ready to carry yet. But it started snowballing. Subtle, stupid things that pile up when you know what to look for. She started coming home later than usual, claiming projects were running over. She started showering immediately after walking in, even when she wasn't sweating. And the new lingerie? Still with tags the first time I saw them. Then mysteriously missing after a trip she said was just her and the girls. I never saw that set again. I started paying attention to the little lies. She'd tell me she was tired but post selfies from rooftop bars. I started counting how many wine bottles went missing from our rack. I started tracking the scent of unfamiliar cologne. Faint, but not mine. On her neck when she kissed me goodnight. Still, I waited. I didn't snoop. I didn't hack her phone or tail her car. I just watched, like an auditor waiting for the numbers to balance themselves or collapse. The real moment of clarity came one night when she left her iPad open in the kitchen. Not unlocked, not planted, just left, like bait. On the Notes app, there was a checklist. Nico, Wednesday 8 p.m. Bring candles. Pack heels. Remember what he said about the song idea. I read that list 3 times. Then I memorized it. The name rang a bell. Nico. From the message. From the Bluetooth history. From the air-kiss conversations she never really explained. I closed the iPad. Didn't take a screenshot. Didn't even tell her I saw it. Because this wasn't about catching her. Not anymore. It was about watching the layers peel off, one by one, like paint off old wood. She wasn't asking for an open marriage. She was retroactively rebranding cheating into enlightenment. She wasn't being honest. She was sanitizing betrayal with buzzwords and Instagram slogans. She wanted to pretend she was brave, that she had needs, that she was just communicating more openly. But this wasn't bravery. It was cowardice dressed in curated vulnerability. A selfish grasp for freedom without consequence. And I wasn't going to scream or plead or write some emotional manifesto. I wasn't going to fight for her. She'd already made her decision. My job now was to make mine. Carefully, quietly, with a level of precision she'd never think I was capable of. I started sleeping with my earbuds in. Not for music, but for peace. I started locking up financial documents she never cared about before. I watched her like someone who'd walked into a fire but refused to believe the smoke was real. And I knew when the time came I wouldn't argue. I would walk, but not before showing her that I was never the weak one. She was. The thing about narcissists is they don't just cheat, they perform. It wasn't enough for Lena to explore whatever fantasy she'd built in her head about open love and authenticity. No, she wanted me to see it, to know it. She wanted my blessing, not so she could move forward with a clean conscience, but so she could twist the knife while smiling. So she started leaving breadcrumbs. Stupid ones. Obvious, deliberate, like a child testing boundaries. Her phone, once surgically attached to her hand, started showing up unlocked on the nightstand. Text previews left visible. Instagram DMs from names I didn't recognize. Most of them creatives or visionaries or spiritually in tune. All with profile pictures that looked like they'd been filtered through 6 layers of lust and bullshit. One night, she set her phone down face up while we watched a documentary. A message popped up. Nico, still thinking about Sunday. You're unreal. She didn't flinch. She didn't reach for it. She just sipped her wine, eyes on the screen, like I hadn't seen it. Another night, she accidentally airdropped a photo from her phone to our shared iMac. A dimly lit image of 2 wine glasses on a hotel balcony. I checked the metadata. Timestamped 10:46 p.m. Last Tuesday. She told me she was at yoga, but I didn't confront her. I didn't even look at her differently. That's what she expected. A reaction, a fight, something loud and righteous she could spin into proof that I was controlling. Instead, I smiled, kissed her forehead, took out the trash like nothing happened. See? This works. We're both adults, she said one night, curling up beside me in bed like a satisfied cat. I was so afraid to bring this up, but now, I don't know. I feel light. She called it lightness. I called it arrogance. Sure, I said, brushing a hair off her cheek. If it works, it works. Then I went to my office and printed out every chat log from our iCloud account. She'd forgotten that I was the one who set it up, that she gave me the password when she wanted to sync her photos, just in case. I wasn't hacking. I wasn't spying. I was documenting. I printed out hotel bookings she didn't know I could access through our joint credit points. I downloaded screenshots of calendar events marked as Studio Session Private, which conveniently coincided with Nico's late-night texts. I created a binder, a literal one, black cover neatly tabbed. Evidence. Not for court. Not for drama. Just for clarity. Because the thing about people like Lena, they rewrite history in real time. And when the collapse comes, they'll cry and scream and say, "You never told me you were unhappy. And you never said no." So I made sure there was a paper trail. One she couldn't argue with when the time came. She'd strut around the house now, wearing her little self-help mantras like armor. Saying things like, "We're rewriting the rules." And, "I've never felt so emotionally honest." I nodded along, took notes, literally. And then she crossed a line that told me everything I needed to know. She brought home a book, The Ethical Slut. Yes, that's the actual title. Left it on the kitchen counter next to the coffee pot like she hoped I'd read it while brewing my morning cup. I didn't touch it. Didn't need to. But I did note that she bookmarked a chapter titled Jealousy is a Lie You Were Taught to Believe. That weekend, I bought a fireproof safe, put the binder inside, along with copies of our mortgage agreement, signed before the wedding, our prenup, and a flash drive, labeled simply, Truth. She thought she was ahead, that she'd outgrown me, that she was living some brave, open-hearted renaissance while I was still clinging to monogamy like a dinosaur. But she didn't know I was already gone. Not physically, not yet, but gone in the ways that matter. The man she married, the one who cooked her Sunday breakfasts, rubbed her back when she cried, bought her a heated blanket because her feet got cold in winter, he was gone. In his place was someone quieter, smarter, patient, the kind of man who doesn't need to raise his voice to end a conversation forever. And while she played chess with her ego, I was memorizing the board. She came in like a woman walking on a breeze she thought she controlled. Key jangling in the lock, soft giggle to herself, purse half open, perfume wafting ahead of her like a guilty halo. It was just past midnight. She didn't even bother texting this time. I was on the couch, lights low, TV off, just sitting there, sipping what was left of the Glenlivet she got me last Christmas. A gift, ironically, for being her rock. The glass was warm in my hand, but my face was stone. She stepped in and stopped. That moment when her eyes adjusted to the dark and realized I was already watching her. Her hair was tousled, eyeliner smudged into the corners of her eyes like a guilty toddler's fingerprints. Her blouse was tucked wrong. Her necklace was on backwards. Lipstick faded, but not where it should have been. "Hey," she said, trying to sound casual. Then, like she remembered she was trying to play the honest wife now, she shifted her tone. "I don't want to lie. I was with Nico. It meant something." She said it like she was surrendering a parking ticket. Like confessing made it noble. Like if she owned it, it canceled out the betrayal. I nodded. One slow tilt of my head. Calm. Not angry. Not surprised. "That's all I needed," I said. Then I stood up, walked right past her, and went into the bedroom. Grabbed the first suitcase from the closet. The one she'd packed for Cabo but never used because work came up. I set it on the bed and began folding her clothes with the same precision I'd once used to iron her blouses for her first interviews. Calm, measured, merciless. She followed me in, confused smile plastered to her face like this was some kind of bit. "Wait, what are you doing?" she asked, half laughing. "Are you serious?" I didn't look at her when I answered. I just kept packing. "You wanted honesty?" I said, neatly folding a silk blouse she'd worn the night of our anniversary. "Here's mine. I'm done." There was a pause. One of those silences that vibrate with all the air someone doesn't know how to breathe. "You're throwing me out?" I zipped the suitcase. "No. I'm giving you to the freedom you've been clawing for like it's salvation." She blinked, lips parting like she was about to cry, or scream, or perform some speech she'd been rehearsing. "But this isn't what I meant." I thought we could explore together. Grow. You're making this ugly. I looked at her, finally. You made it ugly. I'm just getting out of the wreckage before it starts to smell. The color drained from her face. I could see the moment she realized the script had changed. I wasn't supposed to be calm. I was supposed to be angry, pathetic, begging her to stay. I was supposed to be the man who didn't know his value until she used someone else's lips to define it. Instead, I handed her the suitcase and went for the next one. She didn't move. Not at first. I didn't think you'd actually. Yeah, I interrupted, setting the second suitcase beside the first. You didn't think. That's the problem. She started to cry then, quiet and confused, like a child who broke a toy and couldn't understand why it wouldn't fix itself. I let her cry, let her feel it, because mercy at this point would be betrayal of myself. The mask was off, the performance over. She wasn't bold or enlightened or evolved. She was just a liar in progressive drag, mistaking selfishness for strength. I went to the hallway closet, pulled out a box with her name written in Sharpie from our last move. She never unpacked it, claimed she'd get to it eventually. Another promise shelved. I dropped it by the door, then her laptop, then her mail. One item after another. She kept asking questions I refused to answer. Where am I supposed to go? What will people say? Are you really doing this? I didn't dignify any of them with a reply, because this wasn't a negotiation. This was me leaving the courtroom of a marriage where I'd been the only one playing by the rules. You can't kick me out. This is my home too. Lena's voice cracked the moment her desperation caught up with her performance. She had followed me to the door, eyes red, mascara smudged. Her hands trembling like this was some kind of fever dream she couldn't shake herself out of. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't even look at her. Instead, I reached for the knob, turned it slowly, and opened the door. And there he was, Nico, standing there like he'd just arrived for a date night that was suddenly about to become a sitcom funeral. Tan jacket, duffel slung over one shoulder, and a bouquet of grocery store roses in the other hand. The kind they wrap in plastic and discount after 6 p.m. He looked past me, eyes scanning for Lena, that dopey anticipation in his face like he thought this was a secret rendezvous. Like I was just the boring roommate or the brother who'd be politely excused. Then he saw the suitcases, the boxes, Lena's clothes folded and ready to go, and her face, wide-eyed, jaw half-dropped, caught between three expressions that didn't match. I looked at him, calm, measured. You should have told him you were married before he fell for your act, I said. Nico's smile faded. Wait, married, Lena stammered, stepping behind me like I was suddenly a shield she wanted back. It's not what you think. Grant, don't do this, please. He doesn't know he didn't. I handed Nico the suitcase. Her suitcase. To be fair, man, I said. You're not the first, but you're the only one dumb enough to show up with flowers. He didn't move to take the bag at first. His eyes darted between the two of us like he'd walked into the wrong scene. Are you serious? He finally asked her. I was going to tell you. We're separated. She lied, hands up like she could suspend reality with enough finger movement. I raised an eyebrow and added, We're not. Then I turned back to him. She's all yours. I stepped out of the doorway, giving him full access to the mess he clearly volunteered for. She lunged toward me, grabbing at my arm. Grant, don't do this. This isn't. He wasn't supposed to. This isn't fair. I gently pulled my arm back. Fair? You declared open season and forgot to send me the memo. I'm just finally catching up. To her credit, she tried to recover. Eyes wide, she shifted into pity mode, then anger, then pity again. Her expression was a carousel of failed manipulation. You can't just throw me out in front of him like this. I smiled coldly. Why not? You invited him into the marriage. Seems only fair I show him where it ends. That's when it hit her. Not the eviction, not the exposure, but the audience. She didn't mind cheating. She minded being seen as the one who got caught. Public humiliation was never part of her narrative. She looked at Nico. Say something, please. He took a small step back like she was contagious. You told me you were separated. She told a lot of people that, I said, locking the door behind me. She was shaking now, arms crossed tightly across her chest like she was cold. Or ashamed. Probably both. You can't just walk away, Grant. We were building a life. I didn't stop walking. I called back without turning around. You weren't building anything. You were decorating the wreckage and hoping I wouldn't notice the mold. Then I reached the bottom of the steps and didn't look back. I don't know how long they stood there, but I like to imagine it was long enough for both of them to realize they'd miscalculated. Because betrayal isn't just about breaking trust. It's about thinking the other person won't do a damn thing about it. And I had done the one thing neither of them saw coming. I didn't fight. I finished. Silence has a smell to it. A weight. A texture. And for Lena, it started creeping in slowly. Like smoke curling through the cracks of a house she still pretended was intact. First, it was little things. A group chat she used to light up suddenly went cold. Brunch invites dried up. Her stylist, who used to fawn over her aura, canceled last minute with a vague, scheduling conflict, and never rescheduled. Then it escalated. Someone leaked the screenshots. Not just texts. Not just hotel receipts. The notes app plans. The calendar invites. The candid selfies with timestamps that didn't match her alibis. Someone compiled them into a tight, neatly ordered folder, titled openhonesty.zip, and sent it anonymously to her inner circle. Friends, family, her boss, her coworkers. No commentary, no explanation, just timestamps, screenshots, receipts. Truth raw and undeniable. I didn't do it, but I didn't need to. People who try to burn bridges rarely notice the ones watching from the other side. And Lena, in all her spiritual monologues and TED Talk wisdom, never realized how many people knew what she was doing, how many she underestimated or used like props in her little rebellion tour. I found out about the leak the way everyone else did, through silence. And she found out through fire. Her best friend Danielle blocked her. Her cousin unfollowed her and posted a vague Instagram story about betrayal being dressed as freedom. Her boss at the creative agency called her in for a culture alignment review. HR speak for your presence is poisoning the vibe. Lena tried to walk through it like it was temporary. Just a wave of judgment from people who don't get it. She told herself they were just closed-minded. That people were uncomfortable with female agency. But she knew. Nico had stopped calling. Probably after realizing the flowers were a receipt for a mistake. He ghosted. Her fallback guy, the one she'd probably convinced herself would be there once the dust settled, gone. She was left with cold texts and lukewarm apologies from acquaintances who didn't want to take sides. But everyone had taken a side. And it wasn't hers. I got her message a week after the screenshots surfaced. Lena, did you leak them? Be honest. I stared at the text for a while. Not because I was conflicted, but because I was amused. For someone who preached honesty like it was scripture, she sure hated the taste of it when it wasn't in her favor. I typed exactly what I meant. Me, I don't owe you anything anymore. That was it. No denial. No confirmation. Just a full sentence she couldn't twist into a counterpoint. Because I didn't leak anything. I just stopped hiding. And when the one protecting your lie goes quiet, the lie becomes louder than you can control. She tried damage control. Posted a vague story about letting go of what no longer serves you. Tagged it with a photo of her looking off a balcony in black and white. I think she thought it looked poetic. It looked pathetic. Her comments filled up fast. Not with hate but with silence. The kind that screams. You can't spin a story when everyone else already saw the receipts. People started referring to her in the past tense. Remember Lena? Yeah. She got weird. Didn't she blow up her marriage over some guy? She was seeing multiple guys, I think. No, I heard it was someone's husband too. It wasn't just Nico. Turns out, he wasn't her first experiment. He was just the one dumb enough to show up with luggage and think he'd moved up in the world. Someone else's husband. A coworker's cousin. A gallerist she swore was just a mentor. The open marriage line was her shield. For a war she never realized she started alone. I never responded again. I didn't need to. She had spent so long building her image around being brave and different and unapologetic. Now she was just uninvited. 3 weeks after the silence settled and the whispers grew teeth, she messaged me again. A single line on a Tuesday night at 11:04 p.m. I made 'em. They always think they're smarter than the fallout. Lena wasn't different. She just thought she'd come out of the wreckage with a souvenir. Maybe a settlement, maybe the house, maybe just the comfort of forcing me back into a room with her under legal pretense. The separation claim hit my inbox mid-morning on a Thursday, right between a contractor invoice and a loyalty points ad from some airline I never fly. No message. Just a PDF. Lena was requesting partial entitlement to the marital home. She claimed emotional investment, claimed shared vision, claimed contribution to its upkeep, whatever that meant. Maybe the time she bought throw pillows and framed abstract prints from that overpriced minimalist store downtown. What her lawyer didn't know, what she didn't know, was that 5 months earlier, when I first saw the receipt from the Baxter Hotel, I filed a quitclaim deed. Quietly, no drama, no announcement, just a simple notarized document affirming that my name, and only my name, had ever been on that deed. The house? Bought pre-marriage. Paid off early. Mine. But people like Lena don't read the fine print. They read headlines. And in her head, the headline was, "Wife claims fair share." That's the story she wanted to sell. To herself, to her friends, maybe even to a judge. But the moment her attorney pulled the public records, the case collapsed like a soggy cardboard box. Her lawyer emailed me, curt, embarrassed. "Based on the updated title history and documentation, we will not be pursuing Lena's claim further. Consider this matter closed." I printed it out, not because I needed to, just because there's a quiet pleasure in holding the receipt of someone else's failed assumption. Lena found out the same day, not from her lawyer, but from a friend of hers who worked at the courthouse and had heard the case was a no-go. That afternoon, a neighbor texted me. "She's here, parking lot, screaming, alone." I didn't look out the window, didn't drive by. I already knew the scene. Lena pacing beside her car, phone in hand, gesturing wildly like the world owed her a do-over. Maybe she called Nico, maybe her mother, maybe her attorney, maybe no one answered. Because the truth doesn't just burn reputations, it freezes allies. No one wants to stand too close when the smoke settles and you're the only one left carrying matches. She thought the legal system would be her safety net, that she'd lean into the courts like a wounded heroine and come out with sympathy and square footage. What she got instead was a mirror, and what she saw in it wasn't a wronged woman. It was a woman who gambled everything and never read the rules. She texted me later that night, "You really filed a quitclaim before we even split?" I didn't respond, because the house wasn't just a structure. It was the last symbol of the life she pretended to want, until she realized it required effort, loyalty, and roots. She thought she could burn it all down and still keep the keys, but the locks had changed, and she didn't even notice until the door wouldn't open. When every text is ignored, when every door stays closed, there's always one last card people like Lena play. The mother. She called mine on a quiet Sunday morning, like it was a Hail Mary she could launch from her kitchen floor. The fluorescent hum of the clinic was almost louder than the thoughts in her head. Sterile, humming, too white, too cold. Lena sat in a stiff chair, one hand in her lap, the other clutched tight around her phone. Her knee bounced. The paper sheet crinkled beneath her, loud in the silence. A nurse came in. No eye contact, just a clipboard and a sentence that changed everything. "It's positive." Lena didn't say a word. She nodded, barely, blinked, exhaled once, shallow and mechanical. The nurse offered pamphlets she wouldn't read and appointment dates she didn't write down, then left her alone again, in a room that suddenly felt too small to contain the weight pressing against her chest. She waited 5 full minutes before unlocking her phone. She stared at Nico's name in her messages. The last thread was from a month ago, something meaningless. "Hope your week's not too crazy." He hadn't responded then either, but this felt bigger. She typed, "I need to talk to you. It's important." Sent. 3 dots appeared, then vanished, then nothing. She waited. 10 minutes. 15. Still nothing. No reply. No call. No excuse. She stared at the thread until her vision blurred. Then she scrolled. To another thread. Grant. The last message she'd sent was weeks ago. His last reply was still there, short and final. "I already have what I want. Solitude. And standards." She hovered her thumb over the call button. Almost, but didn't. Because what do you say to the man who gave you everything, and to whom you gave nothing back but a performance? What do you say to the man who opened a life to you, and you walked in with muddy feet and a lighter? She'd broken the one person who didn't want anything from her but truth. And now, sitting on a waxed paper sheet in a doctor's office with a second heartbeat inside her, and no hand to hold, she realized what real silence was. It wasn't just the absence of noise. It was knowing that no one was coming. She stared at Grant's message again. Then, slowly, she tapped delete conversation. The phone asked if she was sure. She hit yes. It was the last thread to a life she once called boring. Now it felt like a lost continent. Outside, in another part of the city, Grant was walking through the park. Late afternoon, golden light slicing through the trees. A black and white mutt on a leash, happy, tail swishing side to side, occasionally tugging ahead. He had earbuds in, coffee in one hand, leash in the other, a calm, unbothered stride. A woman jogged past him. He nodded politely. She smiled back. Nothing dramatic. No monologue. No twist. Just peace. Earned. Maintained. Guarded. He didn't know about the test result. He didn't know she almost called. He didn't need to, because the story had already ended for him. And for her, it had only just begun. Alone. Quiet. Heavy with the consequence she never imagined would follow her after the curtain fell. Some endings don't scream. They just close. Irrevocably. Completely. Without echo.